Schools across the country are considering a big shift to their tech policies. No student cell phones in classrooms. The country's largest school district here in New York City put this policy into action last year after New York's governor signed a law banning phones and other smart devices in all state schools from bell to bell. I wanted to know how this first phone-free school year went and what other schools could learn from the successes and challenges that New York students and educators experienced. So I visited Philippa Schuyler Middle School in Brooklyn during one of the final weeks of the school year. There, students placed their phones in a locked box in their homeroom classroom at the start of the day and retrieved them at the end of the day. I sat down with Principal Janice Bruce, as well as a group of 6th through 8th grade students to get their reactions to the phone ban.
Once you get used to the ban for a while, you're actually going to realize how connected you were with your phone and how addictive it was. And then after a little bit, then you're going to get used to it. It's going to be acceptable.
This is Terms of Service. I'm CNN tech reporter Claire Duffy. After a short break, you will first hear my conversation with the students and then with Principal Bruce. We'll be right back. What was your first reaction when you heard that this phone ban policy would be going into place this year?
I was kind of expecting it because what I saw in elementary school when phones wasn't banned is that most kids were just on their phones and being distracted.
Yeah, the phone ban was kind of inevitable since a lot of people were already using their phones and it came as a distraction for the actual learning experience. So a lot of kids weren't focused in class. They were mostly on their phones.
So you weren't necessarily upset to have to hand in your phone?
No, it's actually a good thing.
Tell me more about that. What, after the first school year of this policy being in place, how has it changed your experience at school?
Well, I noticed that more kids have felt inclined to try to hide their phone and stuff. So it also kind of started causing more distraction for kids that like to be sneaky.
I believe it's a better experience and also in a type of education. You can have better time to study and to learn more things.
I believe that more students are more engaged in learning classroom discussions, more better grades. I used to get 80s, now I get 90s.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I would say that the students here have been more socializing with each other and more engaging with each other because before you'd be all on social media and stuff. So I feel now that the ban has been in place, the students here are more engaged and more talkative towards each other.
Normally the phone would actually provide a distraction, but now when students are bored, they have no option but to talk to each other.
Do you feel that you have made better friends this year or connected more with your classmates because you're not spending so much time looking at your phone?
Yeah, I definitely have been making a whole lot more friends. I feel I'm mostly friends with everybody in my class because nobody's too much on their phone. So it's been easier this year.
Do you feel your learning has been better or easier this year because you don't have that distraction?
Yeah, usually a bunch of my classmates, they try taking their phones out, doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. And I was a bad student, but now I improved a lot.
What kinds of things were you doing on your phone during class?
I was just playing games, scrolling on TikTok, yeah.
I also agree. When students have access to the phones, I feel their dopamine circuit is kind of broken because they're always seeking dopamine on that phone. But now that the phone's gone, they have no option but to pay attention in class.
And group work has been easier now that kids are engaged more in conversations, and it's just easier to talk with your classmates.
Has anybody stopped bringing their phone to school because of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I entirely stopped bringing my phone to school because I started to get the mindset that bringing my phone's useless if I'm just gonna lock it in the box all day.
Was it hard to transition and to get used to not having your phone throughout the day at the beginning of the year?
I feel it was kind of easier because once you put it in for the first time, you kind of get used to it. And the time, the school day goes by really fast. By the time you know it, it's time to go home and you get to have your phone again. So I feel it was a really easy change. And it was as once you do it the first time, you're used to it.
I know that there were concerns about parents being worried about this policy and not being able to get in touch with their kids during the day. How have your parents responded to this?
My parents are very positive about the change since they value my education more than anything else. They want me to have a good education for better schools and all that. And without my phone, I can work on that even better since there's no distractions.
Yeah, my parents were very happy about it. Yeah, they were telling me how I'm gonna like improve in my grades, how I'm gonna do better in reading, math, and science. So, and it did affect me. She was right.
Do you feel like your mental health is better this year because you're not having that distraction available?
Yeah, because I feel like, just like what they said earlier, social media can spread false rumors and it can cause fights. And mainly, I wasn't affected by it, but I could see that a lot of kids were definitely affected by it.
Yeah, people, like students in our school who are being affected negatively, either it's social bullying or spreading misinformation online. Without the phone, that takes like a lot out of your mind, because you're not focused on that anymore, because you know it's not going to happen if other people don't have their phone.
So there are schools and areas around the country that are thinking about implementing this kind of policy. I wonder what your advice would be either to those schools or to the students at those schools as we see these phone bans roll out more and more.
I would definitely say like go for it, because it's good for everybody's health. It's good for the students' social, mental health. It's good for the teachers, because they know that their students are actually going to start learning. But I would definitely say implement different strategies before just sticking to one, because knowing what works best for your students is going to positively affect your overall school community.
I also suggest that the lockboxes are fine, but I wouldn't say it's the best solution, because I say that solution is just covering, it's solving a symptom, right? Not the root cause of why students are actually taking their phones out. So I say that the schools should kind of teach students in a way how they use their phone properly, instead of just taking it away. I thought of it of like a parent giving their teenagers, their children money instead of teaching them how to make money.
What would you say to the students at those schools if they're thinking, I don't want to give up my phone all day?
I would say that you do gain more friendships and build better bonds with like your friends and the people around you. And you do see here at Schuyler more students engaging with teachers now.
I understand that it's a little bit of a change, since you're used to having your friend or your mom or your dad in your pocket and being able to call them whenever. But I would say mostly pay attention to the changes and the positives of it.
The change could be scary and risky at first, but once you start actually using the phone ban rule, it gets easy and you start to see more positive changes throughout the whole school community and in yourself.
So we've heard from the students, but how does the principal of Philippa Schuyler Middle School think the phone ban went this year? My conversation with Principal Janice Bruce after this short break. So you had tried taking away students' phones for the day prior to this law going into effect. Why?
Well, I think for the same reason that the governor fought this fight. You know, we know as educators that over time, as you find more and more distractions, whether it be themselves or devices in this particular case, that you're going to have less production. You're going to have teachers having to deal with discipline issues that could just go away by removing the obstruction, right? Removing the distraction. And so it just made everything simpler. It created a structure that was universal, and that way, as a principal, that fight was kind of just, it relieved my fight.
It wasn't your fight.
No, it wasn't my fight
Yeah.
anymore. It was the fight for education. That's technically what it is. It's a fight for education. And so whether or not students were on board immediately, it just made it very clear that across New York State, we are all on the same page with focus, attention, work, and families. You're going to have to join us in this.
Yeah. What have you heard from parents since this has gone into place? Are they still anxious about this?
Some might be, right? Some might still be, but it's less, right? Less communicating, well, I'm not going to have my child put the phone away. Less. And I think what has happened also, interestingly enough, is that the kids are the ones who are now okay with it. The kids are okay. There are instances in which the family might not be happy, but the kids are okay, and they say it. It's okay, I'm just going to give my phone to somebody else. It doesn't have to be put in the box. It doesn't have to be in the main office. So I have counselors and I have a social worker, I have all these other people who can hold the phones if the kid is anxious, if the parent is anxious, just so that we're all on the same page and we are consistent with the laws.
Yeah. What kinds of changes have you noticed in the school? In particular, the sort of socialization between the kids. We're in the cafeteria right now. What are you noticing now that this has gone into effect?
So what happens in the cafeteria is the kids are sitting together, right? When you have a cell phone, you are single user, you are on your own, and the only thing that matters is what's in front of you in your hands. When you now have just humans interacting, right? You have groups of kids. So it makes sense that the kids are now seeing each other as people and they are interacting, they are speaking to each other. And I just like the idea of that. You know, I spend time in the cafeteria also, along with some of my staff, and they have their games, they have their, they have their disputes sometimes, but this is middle school.
Yeah.
This is middle school. Drama is inherent in middle school. And so I love the idea that now the kids have these interactions that work on soft skills that they may not have worked on before. Talking to each other, eye contact, having a conversation. That's what's happening now.
I imagine it's early to tell this, but do you see this having an impact on academics as well?
Oh, for sure. As a principal, that is your job, right? Your job is to take whatever A is in each of your students and create a Z at some point. And that Z usually looks like what's academic, what progress they've made, where are all of the achievements. And so with focusing our kids, I think that makes that job just that much easier. My teachers are happier, my kids are happier because they don't have to worry about all the other things attached to phones. And in the end, it's outcomes. We know that. As a New York City teacher, assistant principal, and principal, it's outcomes. And those outcomes are critical.
You think you'll see this show up in test scores?
Absolutely. I think it does show up in test scores. Even I can tell you for sure from last year to this past year, my ELA scores went up, my literacy scores are up. So literacy has to do with reading, writing, listening, speaking. Taking away the phones allow you to do all of those things, even better.
And that's amazing, right? Because literacy scores generally nationwide are way down right now, right?
Yes. Okay, yeah. So I'm proud. Yeah. I'm proud of what we've been able to do. The structure that we have, where the kids have their phones in the boxes in the classroom, where if they're late, we have a structure for that. The phones stay in the main office. Our kids are decent about it. My staff has implemented with fidelity, and now we are just seeing the fruits of that.
What have you heard from teachers? Have you heard positive feedback from teachers?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have about 60 teachers in this building, so I have a large sample size to work with. So if I haven't heard complaints, the compliments are, when they call downstairs, Ms. Bruce or my dean, Ms. Petaway, a student has a phone upstairs, can you please, we deal with it immediately. And so when you have an administrative team that deals with things immediately, that also supports the teacher's positive benefit, So I think all around, I'm very proud of how this looks in our school, and I think the results will tell the story even better.
Yeah, I was going to ask how often you're having to discipline kids for trying to hide their phone and not put it in the box.
Yeah, well, sometimes we know the ones who might try because they're middle school. They're going to try. Yeah. We can't be utopian and think that nobody's ever going to try to sneak their phone in or not give it in. But I think we have a pretty good handle on the individuals that we need to focus on. And over time, the idea is that those relationships allow them to just bring the phone, just give us the phone, And I think we've been able to transform some students, bring out of the dark side.
Yeah.
And now, even though they were kind of sketchy in the beginning, we don't have any issues like that, or rarely.
There are larger conversations happening right now about tech in schools and tech in classrooms generally. Has this change made you think differently about other types of tech in the classroom?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm a person who tries to stay abreast of all of the new things, because when you want to engage students of this age group, you need to be a few steps ahead of them. So cell phones, and I had this conversation with a group of students too, could be used in a classroom at some point, right? It's how, right? The idea is how. So let's say you have a project, as I was explaining to that group of kids, you have a project where it may require you to keep track of some data, speed or height or whatever it is, and you can use a phone to do that. So there is a place for a cell phone in the classroom. So you just have to know how and to what extent you're going to give the kids the leeway to do that. So with tablets, the idea is the same, right? So a tablet is just a bigger phone. Is really what it is. You have the AirPods, you have the smartwatches. So there's so many different pieces of tech that could impact the classroom. The idea is how we're structuring that integration and then monitoring whether or not things are going, sideways, or it looks like things are good. You also have to prepare the teachers for that. Right. That's not a thing that you're just putting in kids' hands. So the curriculum matters when we look at use of internet-enabled devices in schools, and the training of the individuals who are going to be working with the kids. That's also critical. Yes.
Has anything surprised you about this rollout?
You know what is surprising? And I try to focus on the kids mostly, that they were okay. The kids, they're okay. We expect the worst, but prepare for the best. And the kids have given me their best. I really appreciate all that they have been doing to make sure that they are consistent, compliant with the laws, and teaching them and having those discussions about, well, why should we just have the phone anyway? You're not going to get suspended because you have your phone. Yes, you don't need to have a martial law about it, but you do want to have the trust built, right? I think that's what I explained to them. The idea here is that you are learning and we're teaching you the trust that we have in you that says it's an honor system. This is the law, this is what we are doing, and we expect you to turn your phone in. And for the most part, I haven't had any issues with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's cool. It's like you're setting them up to be responsible tech users down the road, because you're
Absolutely.
saying, here are the pros of these devices, but here are the
Absolutely.
cons, and how should we all think about this?
Right, and that's what it is. So with middle schoolers, unlike high schoolers, you do have to do some explaining. You have to take them through, you have to walk them through the thinking process so that they are like, oh, okay, those aha moments. And so we've had to have some aha moments, and it works.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm really proud of the kids.
Amazing. Well, Principal Bruce, thank you
Yes,
so much.
You're so welcome.
Thanks so much to Philippa Schuyler Middle School for having me. It was pretty cool to hear the students talk about how going phone-free during their school day had transformed their experience. They feel more focused in class. At lunchtime, they're learning games like Uno and Jenga, and even making up their own games instead of staring at their individual screens. They're building better friendships, and they're no longer as anxious about cyberbullying. The broader early evidence around the impact of phone ban policies on test scores is still mixed. But Principal Janice Bruce said she's already seeing improved educational performance in her students. Almost everyone I spoke to at Philippa Schuyler, when I asked for their advice for other schools considering a similar policy, said the same thing: just do it. But they also advised bringing parents and students into the conversation about why limiting personal screen time at school is so important. They also said parents and kids should still have a way to reach each other during the school day if needed. Here at Terms of Service, we've also been having conversations about other types of tech in schools, like student laptops and tablets, and this is something I know many families are grappling with right now, too. We would love to hear from our listeners on this topic. How do you feel about your child's classroom tech use? Has the school's tech policy impacted your thinking about whether your child should attend? Are you personally pushing for less screen time during the school day or more? Send us an email or a voice note to cnntermsofservice@gmail.com. That's it for this week's episode of Terms of Service. I'm Claire Duffy. Catch you next week.